Denis is the publisher and editor-in-chief of UK Progressive magazine, this is a daily online news magazine or newspaper featuring reports, commentary and columns from a wide range of independent journalists, writers and op-ed contributors from around the globe. More recently, he has been working as a social media consultant and has been author of Egypt Unshackled, using social media to something the system. Are you supposed to be able to say that?
Well, yeah.
Collection of...
in polite company.
Yeah. Which sounds like a fascinating book. And it details the events of 18 days of revolution in Cairo via the social media communications of those on the ground. Okay, and today Denis will be talking about how YouTube is a great source of sharing within revolutions. The title of his presentation is Revolution 3.0, Building Niche Video Channels for Commercial and Real Revolution. Great. So, 20 minutes to half an hour.
Then I'll ditch the opening joke. How's that sound, if I've only got 20 minutes here? Good evening, thank you. As you can tell from the accent, I'm not from these parts. I've spent the first 40 years of my life in the United States, and then the last 15 years of my life, so those of you with very good math skills can figure out how old I am as well, here in the EU. And I've really enjoyed my life here because it's completely different, and hopefully you'll not view me as a typical American by the end of the evening, and we'll bust a few stereotypes in that regime as well. But what I do want to talk about is the way in which social media was used both during the Egyptian Revolution 2 years ago and to this day as a source for change, and how social media is just often defined as Facebook or Twitter, when indeed it's much, much more. One of the most astonishing things I saw last week during the US presidential inaugural was this photo. There was Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Now, we were all very interested to hear that she was wearing a Jonathan Wu designed dress. But what I found absolutely astonishing was the sea of mobile telephone screens. Literally, this was taken from the back of the room. So as far as the eye could see, everybody had literally, at that moment, taken out their mobile phone and held it up to capture the image that was going on at that moment. And if I had to sum up what's been going on with the various revolutions of the world, it's that image right there. Because that is such a powerful image of how easy it is for people to capture anything that is going on in this world, and how so many regimes have absolutely no clue about how easy it is or what to do about it. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Yesterday, I produced a program on YouTube, so I'm a bit prejudiced about its power, called Worldview. It's called Worldview Show, so if you go to youtube.com/Worldview Show, you'll see it. And going up tonight at 10:30 p.m. is an interview I had with a guy by the name of Whit Mason. Whit is a very interesting character in that he has spent most of his time in a lot of the countries that we now see on the news, trying to understand the perceptual differences between the countries that have come in to, as we say, liberate them, such as the United States or the European Union, and the people on the ground, and trying to understand how to bring those perceptions together. Because if you're an army with a huge force coming across a nation, you're going to have a different set of objectives than perhaps the people on the ground. And how can we make that transition easier? But you cannot stop messaging, and you cannot stop progress. Now, one of the interesting things I saw last Christmas, the Christmas of 2011, was that was the Christmas of the flat screen television. You talk to anybody at Curry's or what's left of, if anything, of Comet or Dixon's or any of the retail stores out there, you could not stock enough flat screen TVs, large flat screen TVs. Everybody was getting rid of their cathode ray tubes and going to the flat screen. Well, the Christmas of 2012 was completely different. This was the Christmas of the tablet. And tablets took off like they never have before. I know I bought 2 in my house for kids. They're incredible, they're ubiquitous, and one of the things I've learned just in 19 days of running this YouTube channel, 65% of my traffic comes from tablet devices. So all of a sudden, this is what you call your first aha moment. People don't watch appointment television anymore. Apologies to my friend from the BBC, but they're not sitting around waiting for 6 p.m. or 10 p.m. to roll around so they can sit in their living room and watch the BBC News at 6 or 10. You want your news when you want it. And that has been a fundamental change. And part of that started with the 18 days of the Egyptian Revolution. Now, there's a misnomer out there. I believe even the BBC had a program on there calling it the Facebook Revolution, and I certainly didn't help by writing a book talking about Twitter. But this was not a Facebook revolution. Facebook was just a tool. And this is the most important thing I think to understand about social media. Social media is a tool. It's a means to an end. It's something that helped people move from point A to point B by saying, don't go down that street, don't cross the Qasr al-Nile bridge, don't go here, instead take this route around. But everybody in the Egyptian Revolution knew there was only one destination, Tahrir Square. So to call it the Facebook or Twitter revolution is a misnomer. It did help advance it, but it was not the reason we were there. But I would argue that it was the YouTube revolution. Because without the ability to upload these videos and images onto the screen to a broad audience around the world, a lot of people might not have known. You're going to hear from the speaker, Monica, in a little bit, talking about Tunisia. We followed Tunisia. We were shocked as journalists about Tunisia. I mean, nobody ever predicted that Ben Ali would be toppled by a fruit vendor who set himself ablaze. Nobody thought that that would be the spark that would become the Arab Spring now in its second year. We looked at it and said, wow, that was an amazing story. And we all got the notices saying that January 25th, 2011 was going to be a big day, big demonstration in Tahrir Square. But as the cynical, jaded journalists we are, we said, yeah, right, okay. Because the one rule we knew was that the more you talked about a demonstration in the Arab world, the less likely it was to happen. The more people knew about it, the more chance the secret police were also going to be there, and it was going to be a not good situation for those who were there. And indeed, when the 25th of January dawned, we found ourselves in a situation where there was a sizable demonstration in Tahrir Square, met with a sizable response from the police. And for 2 days, they chased the demonstrators down every side street and every alley and beat the living crap out of them. Now, the one thing I always advise people about media, and if I had been an advisor to Mubarak, I would have said, whatever you do, don't make it a day 2 story. You could have had your demonstration on the 25th, it would have just all ended, and not much would have changed. This is if I was advising the regime, which is something I would never do, okay? Let's just be clear here, all right? But if I was advising the regime, I would say, don't make it a day 2 story. But El Adli and the secret police went nuts. And by going nuts and chasing everybody down every possible side street, they made it a day 2 story, which became a day 3 story. And when we got to the 4th day, that Friday after prayers, on the middle of the bridge, when the men kneeled themselves prostrate in prayer, and the police turned the fire hoses on the backs of praying Muslim men, that was the day that fear died forever in Egypt. And some would argue it's the day that fear died across the Middle East. And the networks did a fabulous job of covering this story outside of the United States. This was a shining moment for Al Jazeera English, for Al Jazeera Arabic, for the BBC, for the Guardian newspapers, for the bloggers. But in the United States, you got it through the 5 corporate media mouthpieces. And all you heard was what they wanted you to hear. But on YouTube, you got it all. And I'm here to argue that YouTube is this hidden gold mine that not many people think about, because it gets 4 billion hours of viewers each and every single month. I began to look at some of their statistics. 72 hours worth of video are uploaded every single minute. Since I started this talk, that's what, 300 hours? Uploaded in that short period of time. In 2011, there were 1 trillion views of YouTube videos, and that calculates out to 140 views per person on this entire earth. It's an astounding amount of information that's collected and sent out there. But the real secret is in the channels. And I've been fortunate to be associated now with 2 gentlemen in the United States, David Pakman and Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. They get it. They understand it. I'm part of their network now with the Worldview Show. And what I've seen in just 19 days with my 25 little video interviews that I've done and put up there is I've got 250 subscribers and over 5,000 views. All right? There's a lot of power in YouTube. Now, I'm not talking the power of these folks here. I mean, you know, I was shocked. I remembered reading back in October, November, this would be the first video to go to 1 billion views. It's now at 1.24 billion and growing. And look at that curve. Nobody's going to get that. Repeat, nobody is going to get that. Nor are you going to be like Justin up there with 824 million, or the little guy whose brother bit his finger, which I watched it and I said, I can't believe 500 million people have watched. He bit my finger again. He bit my finger again. It's like the most bizarre thing. But the fact is, the numbers are there. But what it does do in the area of news and news coverage is that we've seen 8 million people watch the attempted assassination of the Bulgarian Prime Minister. That's a lot of people, by any stretch. 50,000 watched Pepe talk about the Assad story on Russia Today across 25 channels. That's a lot of people. But the sad fact is, almost 60% of the videos that are uploaded end up with less than 500 views. You want to find yourself over in this side, where you're getting a channel that's consistently built and developing views, because that's how you start to change dialogues, and that's how you start to move things along. And I'm talking both commercially, as well as if you're trying to bring about cultural change. Now, I often compare these 2 movements because they had a similar genesis. The drum circle up in the top left is the Occupy Wall Street group. In 12 weeks, they managed to change the dialogue of the US political system from one of debt and deficit to one of austerity, to one of fundamental unfairness in the financial system. 12 weeks, we went from that, we've got to cut, to, wait a minute, things aren't fair that the 1% at the top have so much income, have so much power. Down here, these revolutionaries, in 18 days, did the unthinkable. They toppled a dictator. Unfortunately, the skills that you need to really then govern after you've fomented change or revolution are completely different than the skills you need to actually do the revolution. That's when the heavy lifting, as President Morsi is finding out right now, really begins. Congress came in and patted all the Occupy people on the head, said, thank you so much, did a great job, off you go. We promise to look at your proposals very seriously. Yeah. Egypt's President Morsi, Muslim Brotherhood, were an outlawed group. Now all of a sudden, They came out of nowhere because they could. And they began to run a very organized campaign and became the leaders of the government. So change happens, but you can't just put yourself in a situation where you're getting yourself patted on the head and saying, thank you so much. There's a lot more work that's involved beyond that. You need, right from the very beginning, to get a bit smarter. Hello. There we go. Now, we all have opinions about the President of the United States, but the simple fact of the matter is he ran an incredible machine. And that incredible machine has lots of things that everybody in this room can learn from. If you're planning a revolution or starting a new business or running for office, you want to work hard and you want to work smart and you want to rely on analytics and data mining. You want to know who's watching, where they are, and how do you get to the people that you want to reach. I mean, I look at the analytics every day, even after 19 days, and I'm still shocked that 60% of the people are watching on mobile devices. Other piece of analytic news I got was that if my guest has a very broad following, I make sure that I send them a link that they can then put onto their blog and onto their website. That generates even more views. All right? These are things we learn by doing, and we learn as we go. There's no magic formula. Campaigns and businesses require discipline. This was the most disciplined and the most modern political campaign in history. Now, what I wanted to do was to sort of take a step and look at how do you start something like this. I mean, you see me with my empty pockets and my good idea. We're going to go out there and we're going to try and start a network. Now, the way you used to have to do that was that I would go out and visit one of the big commissioning agents, but then I learned no, because what I'd seen Cenk Uygur do with the Young Turks and what I'd seen David Pakman do, the secret is in that YouTube library. That YouTube library gives you clips. And as people discover you and your cause for the first time, well, what else is there? And you start to build off of the value of that library. It brings a crowd to you. And with that crowd, you end up with, if you're marketing a product, a niche, or you come up with a very solid message for your revolution or for whatever it is you're trying to do. You think back 2 years ago, it was a very strong anti-Mubarak message back in 2011. But there really wasn't anything else other than Mubarak must go. Which is why we find ourselves 2 years on, sort of looking at the situation and saying, okay, well, how do we move from point A to point B? Well, yes, ideas can generate money, and this little drawing down here is a little revenue wheel in which I try to look at every situation from a business perspective. I say, okay, what can we do to generate income that's going to move this thing forward? Yes, advertisers are very big on the web, but if you're just relying on developing advertisers, we're going to get very poor very quickly. You're going to go out of business because websites that have just advertising as a base aren't going to go anywhere. The money's in the list, as we always say. So what you're trying to do with your cause, or what you're trying to do with your business, is you're trying to get people to give you their email address. Because with that email address, you have a means by which to communicate with them. I see somebody smiling there. You've done this before. Okay. So I'm preaching to the choir in that regard. And I'll tell you exactly how you move that from commerce over to a revolution in a second. Then you have a membership website. And that membership website gets people to pay you a small amount of money every month. From there, you give them bonus content, a bonus show. From there, you give them swag. Swag? 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 Well, what is it?
Swag.
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 Okay, gotta get it. You know, it's so funny. I use that word and I get different answers every time. Swag. Okay. I got to do with attitude too. Swag. Okay. But the whole idea is to do something that's going to sustain your effort over the long term. And rather than going to these four, which is what you would have had to do at the start, they end up coming to you, and it all just comes back to getting more visitors to your YouTube channel. So the question becomes, how do you apply this to a revolution, or how do you apply this to, you know, some sort of a cause that you feel very passionately about? I'm working with a group in Hong Kong right now that are working with NGOs to produce films. And we're doing this with them as we talk. It's the same thing. You start with YouTube, you build the clips library, because I'm still shocked after 43 weeks. The very first episodes, which I think got maybe 400 views, are still adding 4 and 5 views every single week. Well, it takes a long time, but on YouTube you can earn a living off of exactly what you're doing just with the clip library alone. You're bringing people to your cause. Now, I have a lot of people that feel that they have some need to send me videos of people being beheaded and videos of people being dumped into the middle of the river in Damascus or whatever, or in Aleppo. That's not really helping the process along. What I'd like to do is have people say, look, I've got this message I want to get across, and build it bit by bit. Then you go out and you talk to the major networks with actual clips to show them, but you have to be able to verify it, because so many of them won't even touch it unless they know precisely and can verify where that clip came from on YouTube. And then you need to be writing every single day. Your blog is the most important external point for whatever your message is that you're trying to put out there. But at the end of the day, you're still talking to a global audience who's going to help you generate money to sustain your effort. And a lot of it's going to come from some of the same sources that you're talking about before. You've got Ernst & Young sponsoring your game room here, for crying out loud, people. There's money out there from corporate sponsors that will do whatever it is to get a message out that they are in alignment with. And if you look and see just what's going on right now in the United States political system, the Obama for Action Committee, they're out there. Not a good start for them. But Mayor Bloomberg of New York has put millions of dollars into fighting the gun battle. All of a sudden, you're seeing the left now fighting battles that they stayed out of before. And what are they doing? They're putting their message out there. They're putting it on the web. They're using YouTube. They're using Facebook. They're using Twitter to get the messages out there. They get picked up by the major networks. They get broadcast out there. They write about it. And they've become a credible force now in this internal gun debate where everybody lived in fear of the NRA. Whatever message, you can get smart and you can build a campaign around it. And the marriage between these commercial and social is not as far off as you think. You have the same objective. It's to get viewers, to get your message out there, and to get funding to make sure that that message is indeed heard. Now, this is the point at which idealism and realism meet. It doesn't have to be a car crash, right? It doesn't have to be a revolution. There doesn't have to be bloodshed. You have to plan your strategy, your tactics, your moves very, very carefully. That requires sitting down and doing more than sitting in a drum circle. Drum circles are very good, but they're not going to help you get to where you actually want to be. Regimes are slow in plotting. Apologies, BBC. They take a while to change. You look at the US Republican Party, it's almost as if they learned nothing from losing 3 months ago. You look at the conservatives. I mean, what did they just try to do last week? They tried to jam through a gerrymandered redistricting that would cut Wales out, that would cut Scotland out, that would, make certain that 20 more seats went to the Conservatives. Their own coalition partners, the Tories, said, no, we're not going to do that. But you know what? Regimes do learn. And Egypt learned last November. You saw a new tear gas out there. You saw a new hardened message from the internal police. So you've got to keep learning and moving and growing if you want to change a message out there. Now, we must be in a position where we spend our time learning, unlearning, and relearning. Right? Bugs shocked that the hare has crossed the line ahead of the tortoise, the old fairy tale. So what do? You enlist the help of the roadrunner to help pull you across the line first and faster. So the need for creativity, the need for changing messages, the need for new ideas has never, ever been greater. And traditional media has become less effective because they reach more people for less money effectively than you can just using this camera here, your computer in the background, your tablet over there, to get your message out there in a way that hasn't been done before. So is that simple enough? Just go out and do it. That's really all there is to it. Now, are we doing questions now or at the end?
At the end.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, folks.
You know, again, a lot more people are getting access to these technologies. And as Westerners, when we tend to go to places like Tunisia or Egypt, the first people that we become friends with are people in the upper classes. So we get a little bit of a warped view of what's actually going on in the system. Still, they're minority technologies. A lot of people save up whatever little money they have to buy used phones that, you know, take pictures and have internet capabilities, but actually paying every month for the internet subscription is beyond what a lot of people can do. And remember, the people who really started protesting in Tunisia were not elite people with great internet connectivity in Tunis. They were poor people, really poor people who had trouble purchasing basic goods in the interior regions of the country. So don't make it fancier than it is. But I still think it's important, you know, sharing photos of Bouazizi's suicide, sharing stories about what was happening in the interior, got people in the cities to move, okay? That's a really important element. What the social media did was show Egyptians what was happening too. You know, that wouldn't have been possible as readily. You know, word of mouth doesn't work across, you know, loads and loads of kilometers. So, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to offer is a little bit of both. It's important, but it's not everything. Yeah.
And keep in mind, you also don't have landline telephones in those countries. So, you know, pretty much everything that is communication-wise is via a cell phone. And that's really why Twitter did so well, was because of the 160-character protocol. It was a quick way to send a message across, but again, as Monica just said, not everybody had access to the internet, but everybody had a cell phone.
Simple text messages were probably a lot more influential.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
Hey, so this touches on what both Bill and Monica were saying, sorry Dennis, about the limitations of social media. So say in Egypt, the electoral success of the Muslim Brotherhood was, some argue, due to the physical organisational structure, the fact they could go to the polls while people were queuing for hours and say like, look, vote for us, we're active in the local mosque, we're actually going to help you with charity work. To what extent do you see kind of hope for Syria and other political transitions post the Facebook success, like post this notion of social media success? Where do you see like the people who produce that impetus going?
Wow, that's quite a question.
It is.
She doesn't pull any punches.
I know. So the usual politician's trick is to unask your question and challenge your use of the term Facebook success.
Yeah.
And then that allows but that's just a trick. Okay, that's just a trick to allow me then to try to avoid answering the real question. Yeah. Because then I can sound like I know what I'm talking about when in fact I don't, and make you feel like you asked the wrong question, but in fact you asked a very good question. And the answer is that we don't know. That one of the fantastic things about what Monica said was just how it unpacked a whole load of things. One of them was how narratives are constructed. So I started off by saying we tell ourselves stories in order to live. Many of those stories are false. And in the media, as a journalist myself, you know, the things that you do to construct something which looks plausible to you, which you can sell, which then becomes the driving narrative, means you lose the complexity of what's happening on the ground. And it will be many years before we really have a sense of what the actual importance of what social media there was in Tunisia, in Syria and elsewhere. We're only just beginning to appreciate the importance of television in the end of the Cold War. How important were the television images that were beamed over from West Germany into East Germany? We're still actually, 20, 30 years later, analysing all of that, so we can't expect to leap to conclusions here. Saying that politics still takes place on the ground, though, is really important. Look at Obama. Dennis talked about Obama's campaign. One of the things that helped Obama win was a tool called Narwhal, and it was a get-out-the-vote technology. It wasn't a social media platform, it was a who's going to vote for us, who said they might vote for us, where are they, how do we get them to come out and vote? So you use the technology to drive what happens on the ground.
They did a lot of geolocation technology as well, which was what was used by Bill Gates to target where they were going to invest the money in the Gates Foundation. They knew exactly where everybody lived, they knew exactly what it was they were likely to vote for. So, to say that it's just social media, it never was with Obama or anything else. It's data, and it's data mining and using that data to then achieve your objective.
Yeah, so, just a quick concrete example of a creative application of media that's happening in Tunisia right now and why it might actually do something small to solve the problem. Police brutality is a huge problem because Tunisia, unlike Egypt, which was an army state, was a police state. So reforming police culture and having people report police abuses now is really important. So one of the really good ideas that a Tunisian who used to work at Yahoo but moved back after the revolution had is to build this web platform that allows everybody to basically upload instances of police brutality. Now, that sounds really, really great and jazzy, and a lot of Westerners could sell a story just based on that, and the people who read it would say, oh, that's a fantastic idea. Whereas I would say, well, most people don't even have internet access, so how the hell is that going to work? Good idea. The reason why it might actually work is because he's mobilizing a group of young volunteer journalists who are part of this organization called iWatch, and they do have the technology to live on the ground, live in small grassroots towns, and to help raise awareness about the program. And the way that people can actually report is via a cell phone basic text message to their local iWatch representative, who will then put it online. So you see the extra step of getting out to the people.
Great. Yes, please.
Hi. My question is that first the West held the core infrastructure of the internet, and second, the internet is pretty popular in the Western population, and third, the method of internet controlling in the West is very strong. For example, the CIA has division in which each member have 10 social media account to shape the social media opinion. So, do you think that revolution is less likely to happen in the West, in the developing country, than in a developing country? That's my question. Thank you.
It's a good question, because we're arrogant enough to believe we don't need a revolution here. It's fine. And that is a serious mistake on our part. Go back to Tunisia. What happened there was unpredictable. A spark lit a fire. And social media was one part of something where the injustices in society were just so great that the thing rolled over. So you can't say, even in a heavily surveyed online world where the British government knows everything you're doing online, that something like that might not happen. So I would never rule out the possibility of revolution. It's one of the reasons I get up.
Are you from mainland China? Are you from China?
Oh, no.
Where?
I'm from Vietnam.
Vietnam, okay. Well, similar controlled regimes. One of the things that they're having the greatest difficulty doing is maintaining tight control over messages, internet, communication, etc. The more tightly you try to control something, this is where Bill and I are probably going to disagree a little bit. Internet Protocol 6 doesn't worry me. Okay, because what's going to happen is you're always going to have an anonymous. You're always going to have a group of individuals who are going to look at a situation and say, that's not right, I'm going to find a way to get the message across. They will use the internet, they'll use whatever tools, they'll use anonymous, they'll use other protocols and other ways to hide themselves to get out. Yes, a country can pull the plug on an entire internet like it did during the Egyptian Revolution. I think it was day 5 or 6. But what happened was it was up in 24 hours with a workaround created by Anonymous and others. There will always be a way to get a message out and across. From my perspective, it's commercial. I'm looking to see what can we do to take and harness this in a way that's going to give people the resources and the funds they need with which to do that.
Okay. Another point I would make is that a revolution is more than just a minuscule moment of realization or change. A revolution requires mobilizing the masses. Okay? That's what happened in Tunisia and Egypt. The masses were not mobilized because of more abstract discourses regarding human rights or posts on Facebook and Twitter. They were mobilized because of the socioeconomic degradation, lack of dignity, constant oppression that they faced on a daily basis. In my country, America, I believe that we need a revolution on a lot of levels. I cannot get free medical care. There is not a single labor union in my entire state, which is one of the top 5 biggest coal mining states in the country. Nobody's unionized, not a single worker. I think we need a lot of revolutions. But for those revolutions to happen, we have to mobilize the masses. And we don't do that by talking inside our silo. We don't do that by talking to each other all the time. And I feel like I do that a lot, you know, with my more political posts on Facebook. You know, like a lot of my friends, especially after I left the States, oh, they all love it. You know, all of my British friends agree with me, of course. You know, but back home in Eastern Kentucky, which is like Tea Party, W-loving heartland, like people don't even know half of the media sources I'm posting from. And the ones that I work for that I respect, like National Public Radio, which is like your BBC4, or New York Times, which I work for, they view as just liberal and crazy and biased, and they think that Fox is the real deal. So, my father, I know it's hilarious, but it's terrifying if you're American, so shut the hell up. But my dad...
Well, that's fair and balanced of you.
Yeah, I know, right? All about liberal expression. You know, but my dad, who's living on the front lines, I would say, you know, in one of these perception wars, is like the only liberal guy in this little town of 600 super conservative people. And he's probably doing a lot more by talking with the guys who work at the general store and at the local Walmart every day than I'll ever do writing for the New York Times, you know, to change things on a local level. But I mean, you know, the masses have to be mobilized, so...
But let's not kid ourselves. I mean, if it was not for Bouazizi in Tunis, and if it wasn't for the fact that we got to, what, day 16 or 17 of the revolution, and Wael Ghanim was released from prison and went on television and cried, and that put 8 million people on the streets because they actually could see it at that particular point. I mean, those are the mass mobilizing moments of both of those events. So you don't know where that mass mobilizing event is going to come from, because if you look at the arc of the story of the Egyptian revolution, it was over on the 15th or 16th day. The media were pulling out, nothing was happening, and that one decision to release Ghanim is what all of a sudden, 3 days later, you know, Mubarak was gone. You don't know what's going to cause something to virally go absolutely absurd and bring millions of people along with it. And so, you know, and to say that it's a, you know, a YouTube video of how he bit my finger, or, you know, the Gangnam Style or whatever, I mean, yeah, okay, that's part of it. But yeah, I do agree with Bill on the fact that it is just a tool, but it's a very powerful, persuasive tool. And it's that power of persuasion is what actually causes something to go viral. Sorry,
Okay.
you were going to ask.
I just, sorry, I just want to say something. But we forget about all these other technologies that people use to communicate with one another. Like, for example, there's a lot being written now about poetry and music in the Egyptian Revolution, and how important because also that's just linking to a whole history of protest songs that exist in Egypt. So the ability to sort of recreate these musical and poetical moments as a tool also for mobilising. I mean, this is not directly related to social media, although of course some of this was then captured on social media. But you know, it wouldn't work if there wasn't already that history of people using spoken word poetry or music to protest.
Yeah. But I mean, I abhor the term social media anyway. I mean, it's a clumsy, horrible, inaccurate, misleading construction. that if media is not social, it is nothing. And therefore, it's like social networking. What's that? What's a networking without? You put these words together and hope they have some meaning, but in fact they turn into marketing terms, and they distort our thinking. They distort our ability accurately to describe, as we heard, what is really going on. So your point is very well made, completely true. And we need a framework for understanding that will incorporate all of that, that might even have some, at least explanatory value, if not predictive value, because I agree entirely that you can't tell when it is a revolution when it gets out of control. It is a revolution when things get broken before you know what's going to replace them. And the point at which that happens, where a movement for social change becomes a revolution, is inherently unpredictable, like a bridge collapse.
We were joking that, when Mubarak makes his third speech, he's gone. And you could see the arc. It had nothing to do with social media. It had to do with, okay, there's the first speech where he says, I'm not going to do anything. And then the second speech is, well, we're going to take a look at things. And by the third speech, he's gone. And it was the same thing with Ben Ali. It was the same thing with there's a predictable arc to every one of these stories, whether it's a spoken word story, whether it is used across a vehicle on the internet, whatever. At some point in time, it does kind of...
Be careful with that. Sorry, I interrupted you. You go next, and then I'll come back.
And then I do have some more questions from the audience. So.
I'm just saying quickly, beware of a single factor explanation, and realize try to put don't view knowledge creators as these like untouchable beings, because you could easily be one next week if you publish, okay? They're all humans, and humans have interests, and humans want prestige, okay? Academics, journalists, policy analysts, they all want prestige. So in a moment of great social upheaval, or whenever you're dealing with a phenomenon that a lot of people can't explain, like, political Islam or Salafism, there's kind of a rush to be the first dude on the scene with a viable explanation. Okay, so there's this pressure on people working inside embassies, practitioners, people who need to develop policy, and writers who need to sell stories, and academics,
the New York Times,
like those people, and academics who need to make reputations to explain it all. And we can all tell you, anybody who does work in the Arab region can say, well, after the revolution started, everybody came to me and asked what happened, asked why, And if anyone tells you why, they're bullshitting you. Because you need a crystal ball, okay? So just remember that and always beware of the single factor explanation, especially in times that are hot, like right now in Mali. In times when there's a fire on, everybody wants to say who lit the spark, and almost nobody knows.
Yeah, and if I can just echo that, the plural of anecdote is not data, okay? Just because people tell you plausible stories doesn't mean they hang together. And we all look for patterns. So have any of you ever had that experience where you dream about someone you haven't seen for ages and the next day you see them in the street and it's really unusual? Yeah, it's not unusual at all. Because the days you don't meet someone you dreamed about, you forget about it. You only remember the time it was significant. You don't notice all the insignificant times. We don't know how many Tunisian fruit sellers committed suicide in the last 10 years and failed to spark a revolution.
It was actually about 66.
Thank you. We do. Precisely.
They weren't fruit sellers. They were just dudes. But this happened before self-immolation happened, before Mohammed Bouazizi. It happened. And I can tell you exactly where and when some of these things happened, but they didn't spark a revolution.
That's research.
It happened.
Right. All right. So if you don't mind, I'll take a few questions now from the audience to make sure everybody gets to ask their question before the end of the Q&A session, and then allow you to respond. Is that okay?
If we can remember the questions, that's fine.
You can always write them down.
Just don't let her ask.
So this guy has been waiting patiently for 10 minutes, so go ahead.
Great. Thank you, everybody. It's been really good. So I was really interested by Bill, you're obviously a technology writer. You read about all these companies, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, who sort of famously are like these platforms for media publishing, but then they have their own commercial interests, as you mentioned. I thought it was really interesting that Twitter particularly came out during, I think it was actually January 2011, and it's very specific, but on their blog they said that we believe that freedom of expression is essential, and basically, so what I'm really interested in is kind of the difference between identity on Facebook and identity on Twitter. So on Facebook you have to use your real name, on Twitter you could literally make a parody account and publish anything you want anonymously. Do you think that Twitter actually believes what they're saying, like that ultimately they won't, protect their commercial interests, or is it just kind of bluster?
I'll come back to that.
Yes.
I'm sure you have used to.
Okay. Bill, how much do you agree that sort of the developing countries in inverted commas need to like follow the same trajectory, like getting dial-up internet, then broadband, and then cellular connection, or perhaps they should skip out of you? And what are the panel's views on like text to tweet and calls to tweet that when there's been internet blackouts and the Google and Twitter thing?
Okay, then there's a question. Yeah,
Yeah, so Anonymous has been mentioned, and Bill talked in his talk about you've got to learn how to use the internet properly and code, or it's going to own you, which sort of implies somehow subverting censorship in some way. So I'm wondering about the boundaries of sort of legality on that, and whether you think breaking the law on the internet is a legitimate form of civil disobedience.
Great. Any more questions?
That's probably enough for the next hour.
Great. So
And that's just me.
I'll allow the panel to respond to
I
the
would like to
questions and also to conclude. Yes, or phone a friend.
Who wants to go first?
Yeah, you can also use this time to conclude if you want to make any concluding statements as well.
I mean, I'm tempted to conclude like Mark Kermode, other opinions are available, but they are wrong.
Shall we start in the order of...
Do you want to go first with those questions?
Speakers
Devin.
Okay.
You're the best person to answer that.
I'm not. I'm just going to be fast now. Okay, very quickly. My friend Birgitte Jónsdóttir, who's a member of parliament in Iceland, is currently having all of her Twitter records subpoenaed by the US government, including IP addresses and times online. And the government won't say which other social networks they've asked for information from. And indeed, it would be illegal for those other companies to say that the government has asked for information. So whatever Twitter may think, they can't do the right thing. They are a US corporation regulated by US law, and the whole panoply of the legal infrastructure means that they can, up to a point, but at some point they will not be able to defend free expression for people who are not US citizens. They have a much better chance with US citizens. So I believe that Evan means it. I just think there are limits to what you can do if you're a profit-making US corporation, and we should acknowledge that. And that's just the case. In terms of the trajectory, God, no dial-up, no fixed-line infrastructure, no copper anyway gets stolen anyway. Now, you leapfrog, essentially, at the point where you decide it will be useful to your citizens to have this technology, you take the thing that's just being deployed and build the one after that, so you're ahead of the race for a bit, if you possibly can. So no, you absolutely shouldn't. Yeah. The analogy is quantum theory. How many of you here have been taught quantum theory? Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? And the problem is that it's generally taught historically. But in fact, quantum theory is quite simple if you just teach what we currently think. It's only hard if you start with the problems that Einstein and Heisenberg and Pauling were trying to face up to. So it is with technology. Start from today. Don't assume that dial-up has anything to teach you. And what was the third question? Anonymous. Civil disobedience is always a good idea. I mean, always. It's the only way you get real change. And you have to be willing to pay the price. If you are going to break the law, then you have to be willing to be fined, to go to jail, to have your reputation ruined, to have your life thrown away. If it's important enough to you. Decide what's important. Do that.
Thank you. Monica?
Not directly related to any of the questions, but just a concluding thought. I guess it's kind of related to your question on piracy, but there are many revolutions to be made, and they are not so difficult to make. I think as young people or as fresh problematic thinkers, no matter what our age. We have a responsibility to question fundamentally why things have to be as unequal as they are sometimes. We're sitting in an academic institution. Not many of you have probably written academic journal articles, but I can tell you that it's a lot of work to write those annoying articles that you have to read for your classes. And you don't get paid for that work. You get paid to write a tiny little op-ed that's this big. You don't get paid a lot, but you get paid. You get paid a little bit more to write journalistically. You don't get paid anything to write academic literature. And yet, even though the editors don't get paid, the writers don't get paid, people, my friends in Tunisia, who desperately want to expand their minds and read the things that we hate reading in classes, can't go online and get those articles. Even though they're not physically printed, so there's no printing cost involved, the editors aren't getting paid, the writers aren't getting paid, that academic institution is still unequal. That could use a mini revolution. When I say this to older academics, they look at me like I'm crazy. Because it's about prestige, it's about getting published in big journal articles, okay? Nobody really wants to rock the boat. But I think as young people, we have a responsibility to rock the boat. Last example, and then I'll finish. International organizations descended en masse on Tunisia after the revolution to try to help Tunisia, sometimes, giving help that was more effective than other times. But we're talking about dozens and dozens and dozens of organizations in a time where people don't have much time to deal with experts and don't have time to hunt for funding sources, and where the idea of creating your NGO is very new. There's no single website that amalgamates all the funding opportunities available from internationals. You know how when you apply for a university, this university probably had one website that told you all the scholarship opportunities available? That doesn't exist for Tunisians who are looking for international funding, even though so much exists. So there are simple mini revolutions related to internet usage that we can have, and that we have a responsibility to advocate for. Because at its best, the internet reduces production costs and expands knowledge horizontally to people who need it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I agree with Bill, the internet is a tool. But let's not forget that capitalism can have a good social conscience as well. And I think that is where we do fall down a lot of the time, is that if you're going to go out there and use these tools, make certain that you're doing it in a way that it helps to pay for itself. All right? You have a voice, use your voice. But make certain that you follow the path that's going to also make certain that you are able to sustain yourself going forward in life. These tools give you the ability to do that. And if you use them correctly, I don't believe that we're going to see, massive government conspiracies out there. You saw the number. 4 trillion videos are out there on YouTube. There's no way any government can sift through the amount of data that it's collecting right now. All right? We've all got dossiers in the CIA. I'm sure mine is probably thicker than any of yours. But they don't care about me. They don't care about you. They care about who the next Unibomb is going to be. They're following a particular pattern to look for individual people. So I don't believe the sky is falling. I don't believe that there's somebody out there trying to get me and shut down my computer or my device. That the world has tremendous opportunities, and you are the generation that's going to seize it, because if you don't, then my pension doesn't get paid for in the future. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, well, I think really it was quite amazing, Sony, that you picked 3 speakers with such contrasting views, and we actually had a real debate. Okay, so I think we should give them a big clap.